Hi, I'm JC Alvarez.
And I'm John Griffith. Welcome to Talking About.
And if you're just tuning in, we're really excited tonight because if you're on another network, we actually stole one of their stars this evening. From the CW hit show, we have John Wesley Shipp with us.
Welcome. So glad to have you.
Thanks, John. It's good to be here.
And that CW show is The Flash. If you don't recognize this man, there he is. I mean, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for coming.
Thanks. It's my pleasure. My pleasure to be here.
So 25 years ago,
Thanks.
Lightning struck.
25 years ago, lightning strikes on CBS. And it's sort of like, you know, like thunder, you have this primetime hit called The Flash, which, you know, as legend says it, you knew very little about this superhero character when you took the role of Barry Allen.
Yeah. When they said something about playing the Flash, I said, "You mean Flash Gordon?" And they went, "No, the Flash." So now I act highly insulted when anyone says that to me. I got to know the Flash, but I didn't know anything about the character, and I was a little concerned in 1990 about playing a superhero lead because it wasn't what it is now. You know, I look at Grant Gustin, who plays Barry Allen now, and how comfortable he is in his suit. I mean, he'll act, he'll talk. I didn't want to talk when I was in the suit because
it was a very different suit back then. I think we do have an image of the original costume.
It's like
We'll pop
Yeah.
in there.
Which was pure latex, or
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was about $100,000 to build 4 suits. It was a lot of foam latex and flocked with a red material and then sprayed with a sealant because I'd have it on for 15 minutes and I'd just be sweating through it totally.
Yeah, it's funny because, I mean, of course, John and I are huge fanboys, and we can relate to the fact that, you know, that show was coming on the heels of the success of Tim Burton's Batman. And, you know, so much of the success from that movie really came off on your show, and it really, you know, brought this universe to life. A lot of people would say that the show was really ahead of its time. Now that you're back on sort of like the contemporary version of The Flash, do you sort of like look with fondness at your show and see like, you know, wow, you know, we started this legacy and now we're continuing it? Do you regard it like that?
What amazes me is the way people respond to it now, and they respond to it in the way that you're speaking. You know, when they call me the OG Flash, I'm like, what? What are you talking about? But it was a very different world back then. You know, we were at the dawn of a new way of telling these stories for television, you know, looking at the darker aspects, the more adult side of the characters, the real human element, which, you know, when I expressed some concern about running around in a red rubber suit, you know, they said, no, you know, I've been on Broadway. I had pretensions of being a serious actor, delusions, some might say.
Well, you're an Emmy-winning, you're actually a 2-time Emmy-winning actor.
Guilty. Yes.
Of course, because you have, you know, as part of your career, you also had a great career in soaps. So,
Yeah,
you know,
soaps and theater before I came out to do The Flash. And
so all that led up to, you know, the streets of Central City.
Yes, but it was very different in those days because we were, some have said we were a CSI show before CSI shows came on, and of course in those days comic books hadn't hit the mainstream in quite the way that they are now, where 180,000 people take over San Diego during San Diego Comic-Con. That was not my experience when I went the first time, you know.
What was it like for you when you went to San Diego Comic-Con?
Well, they said, you know, there's this convention. We should probably go down there. Danny Bilson, Paul DeMeo, and I went down on a Saturday morning. I signed a half-dozen autographs, spent several hours there, and left. And then we went back and premiered our pilot in Hall H in front of 7,000 people in 2014. And I remember Jesse L. Martin going, I mean, it was just a completely different experience. And we were being bathed in so much love. He said, we haven't even been on the air yet, you know, but the audience, where we had to sort of chisel and hammer for our audience, the audience now is inviting this new show in with such warmth and such a sense of being mainstream. And as I said again, I really tell the difference in the way Grant deals with the suit versus how I was shy about it. I never wanted to say dialogue in the suit. I wanted it to be, because I was concerned, you know, from the way comic books have been treated up to that point.
Yeah, it was a very camp prior to that.
Yeah, and not that I was a big fan of the Batman TV series. I knew I wouldn't be good at that. That's not my sense or sensibility. So,
Speaking of camp, one of the greatest highlights of your show was when Mark Hamill, who we all know from Star Wars, he created Luke Skywalker. That role of Luke Skywalker is so identifiable with Mark. But he created another really great role on your Flash. He portrayed the trickster.
Right, there's an image of that also.
Yeah, which we have an image of the two of you on set. And he sort of was like the rogue that came back on your show a lot, and now he actually came on to the new show as well. Yeah. It must have been really surreal to have that happen, kind of like.
Well, it was completely unexpected. It's like when Mark and I were going back to the hotel, we were talking about how often do you have an opportunity to come back and revisit a project 25 years later and hand it off to the next generation, and also be asked to play multi-dimensional characters which are really contributing in the present, not just going by and saying, oh, there's a guy that used to wear the suit, But yeah, if ever there was a villain that should recur, it's Mark. If you have a chance to have Mark Hamill on your show, you write for him.
If Mark is listening, we would love to have him on. The show's now coming into its third season, but the second season DVD is out, and this season, I mean, whoa.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like if our audience has not seen the second season, it's going to be really hard to not spoil something that happened that was incredible. I know you want to ask John about a couple of things about season 2 going into the.
Yeah, well, I mean, you had quite the character arc this year.
I did.
This past year.
At the end, yes.
And
yes. I know, it was a whirlwind, wasn't it? Yeah. I got out of prison finally and said, see ya, I'm leaving town. And then I came back once when Barry broke his back and needed me, and I felt like I wasn't in the way.
And that was interesting. That actually, excuse me for interrupting me, but that was also really interesting how when they brought you back into the Flash, I mean, they could have done anything. They had a classic actor to connect with on the new show, and you could have played any kind of legacy character. They made you Henry Allen.
Yeah. Well, when I'd heard about the new treatment of the Allen family and how people said, did you feel like you were doing a rerun of what you'd already done? And I said no, because the Allen family, Jeff Johns' recreation of that whole story about the father being wrongfully convicted of killing his wife in front of his 10-year-old son, it was a completely new character. And because it was so different from what I had done, I thought at the beginning, before anyone called me, that if they came to me, that's the role I would want. Everyone said, oh, Jay Garrick, you have to be Jay Garrick, Golden Age Flash. And I was like, well, I don't know if I want to go into another suit right away, or at all. And but Henry Allen really intrigued me because I also knew, by virtue of the fact that Barry was the only one that believed and knew that he was innocent, that would create and carve out a very special relationship. That it would be action, adventure, fun, amusement park, and then when everything stopped and Barry needed to get vulnerable and sensitive, he went to his dad, who raised him from birth to age 10. So I knew we'd have these special moments. I didn't anticipate that they would be quite as special for me as they were.
And one thing that I'm glad that they didn't do, early on I thought that they were going to write it into a trap. Every time you would come on, I was afraid that there would be this emotional pep talk. Hey, son.
Oh yeah,
and
no, not at all.
Yeah, it was once or twice, and then your character actually got to evolve.
Yeah. Yes.
Until the end of the season, where there was an emotionally devastating climax. Yeah. Shortly after something that the fans were really looking forward to, between you and another actor from the original incarnation.
Yes.
They say we were, if you want to go into, who I'm talking about, and how people were looking forward to seeing the two of you.
Tina McGee.
Yes.
With Amanda Pace.
Yeah. Two seasons in, you finally get some screen time together, and then
we got a little brief flirtation, and then I was snatched right out of yet another dinner party. I left after my homecoming from prison, and then I think Henry Allen should just have stayed away from all
Iris's
gatherings.
Cooking.
It was Iris, yeah, right.
Stay away from Iris's cooking.
But yeah, it was amazing because I didn't know when I went up to do the last 4 episodes everything that they had planned. And then I began to have a fit. How specific can we be? Are we doing spoilers?
Sure.
For
I mean, it's like,
two?
you know, the DVD is out, so
DVD's out. People have had all
Right.
summer to watch it, and
Yeah.
if they haven't watched it, they should be ashamed of themselves.
Well, yeah. So I went up there and I did a costume fitting with this shredded suit that looked vaguely like a prison suit, but a different color. And I was like, well, what's this? And then Kate said, well, of course you'll be fitted for the Iron Mask separately. And I went, the Iron Mask? She said, oh my God.
But for anyone who's just tuning in, there is the major antagonist of season 2 is this villain called Zoom.
Yes.
Who comes from this alternate universe, and we find out that he's been holding someone captive in his secret supervillain lair. And he becomes called the Man in the Iron Mask, and we don't know who this character is all season long. And you know, Barry's trying to like save the world and defeat all these bad guys, and you're getting fitted for
an Iron Mask. And I had no idea. I said, really? She said, well, I didn't tell you. I said, oh, okay, all right. So then I'm sitting with Grant and with Jesse, and they said, did you hear what you're doing? And I said, yeah, apparently I'm the Man in the Iron Mask.
poor Henry.
And they were like, yeah? Is that all you know? And I said, there's more? And then I talked to Greg Berlanti, who I worked with on Dawson's Creek, you know, all these years ago. And there's a real fun Easter egg coming about that, but I can't say anything more than that at this point for season 3. But yeah, and he told me spun out this amazing arc where I would come back, decide to come back to Central City, be very much involved in Barry's life, and then in the span of 2 or 3 episodes, Henry Allen would be killed by Zoom, the main antagonist. The Man in the Iron Mask would be revealed. It would be me. And it turns out I would be the role that everyone wanted me to play at the beginning, the real Jay Garrick.
Jay Garrick.
So it was like,
Flash,
wow.
We have a close-up of that in the computer, so we're going to get to that in a sec. So yeah.
I was like, wow. I said, man, Greg, take me out of the picture. That's just really good manipulation of fan expectation. Because wham, the end of one episode, Henry's dead. We pick up at his death at the beginning of the finale. The Iron Mask, Man in the Iron Mask is revealed. Very shaggy, looks just like Henry Allen. And then you find out I'm Jay Garrick. And it's really, for comic book fans, it just, there was a series of little explosions and it was fun to watch that roll out. The audience is so wonderful, and the sense that I get from people who've been comic book fans for years before it came cool, you know, you guys, it's like you're so proud of yourselves.
Yes, we
now
are.
because
Yeah,
it's
well, I
gone
mean,
maybe
it's just
3.
with that reveal, it's like, you know, at least a quarter of the audience needed to change their underwear.
Well, it comes full circle because, of course, so many people do believe that, you know, your show was sort of like treated, you know, badly by the network and it was pulled off the air too soon. So kind of like now you've gotten your season 2.
Yeah, it took us
in a
25
sense.
years to get out. That's what I told people. It took
Yeah.
us 24 years to get a second season.
But like you say, it is such a great twist, and it just speaks to how much you know everyone loves the show, and the writers are so connected to what they're creating. And
Yeah,
really,
Greg
and really
Berlanti
going
and
in.
Andrew Kreisberg both were big, and Jeff Johns
Yeah.
were all fans of the first effort, and there's a lot of homage, genuine, affectionate homage paid to the first effort, and that's really good to see.
Well, even a little clip shown as part of the multiverse that
Right.
they're developing,
Right.
which was another change your underwear moment for the fanboys. It's
And I was like, oh my God, that suit. No, never again, never again.
Well, they got you finally back into a suit, and
Yeah,
sort of
they
like
did.
now we're like really curious. I know you have season 3. You want to try to get them to give you some season 3.
yeah, well, yeah. I what can you tell us? I know you've done some so far, because yeah, it's in the trailer.
Right. Well,
Tell us what you're allowed to tell us.
I mean, it's like, you know, obviously Jay is going to be a part of Barry's life. Barry's, you know, life as a speedster. That's got to continue, right?
yeah, I mean, you know, obviously we're going to go into our version of Flashpoint, so that involves Henry. And obviously I've been revealed as Earth 3 Jay Garrick, and the challenge is now going forward to keep those two characters, even though they look very much alike, very different in temperature. Henry was very warm. Of course, there was a whole history with Barry, very supportive. And Jay, as sort of the keeper of the flame, the Speed Force, he's like looking at this kid going, okay, are you going to screw things up? You know, and we'll see where that develops. Of course, I can't say anything more than that. Poor Suzanne Gomez at the CW.
Well, you know,
she's sitting there like this, going,
she's probably
no, don't
she's
say
gonna
it.
call any minute now. You know, the character itself. I mean, this illustration by Joe Stanton was just given to you, and what I think is incredible. This was at Terrificon recently, the Comic-Con that you most recently attended. And Joe Stanton is one of the original creators who made this character so popular.
Yeah.
And, you know, to have, I mean, it must have been so incredible to have him come over and sort of like give his stamp of approval and say, hey, John, you know, this is, you know, thanks. You know, thanks.
I know, he was thanking me.
Yeah.
You know, I said, really, you know, I mean, we should be thanking you. And of course, you know, my line, and everyone realized who it was. And a couple of the other artists who were so fundamental in the resurgence of the Flash and in maintaining that character through the years in comic book lore came over, and which I was floored, because that's a whole world that, you know, it's like I told them in the Q&A, I was very aware that the Flash was 50 years old when I got to it. It had been in comics for 50 years. Now it's 75 years old, and the second TV version is going. So it's this phenomenon that was going on before we got there, we being me and Grant. And the audience has kind of carried us along through the different roles that I've played, voicing Professor Zoom, Henry Allen, Jay Garrick. And it will go on after Grant and I are no longer on the scene. But it's this wonderful kind of being carried through something that's really special.
And having handed it off, because you're still part of the show, but having handed it off to Grant Gustin, who really is not only a fan of the genre, but he really is a unique actor in so many respects.
He is. I think the much overused word phenomenon can be used. I mean, in terms of his musical talent, his physical gifts in terms of movement, dance. He's much more mobile, and he can do leaps and bounds and twirls and twists as the Flash that I never could.
The Belettiverse has, he's one, and another Glee alum in Supergirl.
Yes, Melissa Benoist.
Yes.
Yeah.
And recently it was announced, not a secret, in the second half of the season there's going to be a musical crossover.
Yes, there is.
So,
Yes.
so how are your pipes?
Well, I've done my obligatory Curly in Oklahoma, the Sullivan Theater. I sang in a musical with Judith Ivey, actually, at the West Beth, and did a little singing and dancing at Lunasa on Broadway, but in a South Walian accent. That was very bizarre. But yeah, I can't imagine what Jay and or Henry might sound like, but I don't know. I don't know if I'll be a part of that. Well, but I'm looking forward to them. But speaking of Melissa, we did our one season and out on CBS. Melissa started on CBS with Supergirl, but now that's come over to the CW. So we're this one big universe, and they're structuring actors' contracts across the whole different platforms so that we can, if they so choose, move us back and forth between the shows. So it's a great time.
And that's something that I want to see.
It's a great time to be a comic book actor and to be a comic book fan, because it's limitless horizons, isn't it? Yeah. Anything can happen, literally.
Because, I mean, just going back to my own childhood, it's like when 6 Mil and Bionic Woman crossed over, it was like the ultimate, whether it was fembots or Bigfoot.
Oh, wow.
It was like one of the joys of my childhood, and I can only imagine the current generation growing up watching this feeling the same way, and there's just so much more of it because this fall there's going to be a 4-night crossover.
Well, that's what they're anticipating, that there might be a 4-night crossover.
I don't know what I can say and what I can't, but there will be much crossing over.
Yes.
I think that everybody knows that.
And also you are, you spoke to your experience as an actor, and you've got a great project that you're working on right now. You're going to be appearing in 12 Angry Men in North Carolina at the Judson Theater. You're going to be doing the play by Reginald Rose in North Carolina at the end of September.
Yes.
What's that? I mean, that's such a heavy, steeped role. Tell us a little bit about that project.
Steeped in tradition, yes, yes. Well, it's a play that presented itself in my consciousness very early on. My sister, actually, in Wake Forest, North Carolina, did a student production of that play with its themes of fighting prejudice, of stepping back from our preconceptions, of stepping back from our emotions, and being able to sift through evidence and come to rational conclusions in a very highly charged emotional atmosphere set in a jury room after a murder trial. But it's all, and that's why, North Carolina is going through some interesting times.
Very interesting,
isn't it?
Oh yeah, really. There's so many issues down there with their laws regarding transgender and just the LGBT communities under a lot of targeting with their discrimination laws.
Yes, and very happy to see that the courts overturned the voter suppression that was attempted for the selection cycle, and so a lot of performers are canceling for that reason in protest to those things.
Rightly so.
Rightfully so. And so the question is, why am I going? And the answer is, the reason I'm going is the reason they canceled. Because this is a play, if ever there was, an appeal to reason that should be seen in a swing state during an election year. That's dealing with issues, the very issues we deal with in the play, a rush to judgment, making judgments based on personal prejudice and on our emotions, when really we should be telling fact from fiction. And not only that, we should be discriminating fact from fact and weighing the relative values of each. Well, this is a perfect play, and it speaks to all of that. And I think it's going to be a very rich experience.
I bet, and I understand that you're going to be performing it also for a young audience. It's going to be...
Yes, I can't wait. I'm especially excited about the student performance. And the artistic director of the theater, Morgan, said some of these kids had never seen theater before. So I'm really jazzed about that, and presenting them something that has meat on its bones, it deals with real issues they could be ripped right out of the page of the newspaper and put in a context. By the way, 12 Angry Men, on a jury before women could even serve on juries in some states. They didn't serve on juries in all 50 states until, are you ready, 1973.
Remarkable, yeah.
Now think about that in context of this presidential election.
Yeah. Well, it's important that our art have something to say, especially with so much static that we're getting right now.
I think so.
Election season is so steeped in so much static and deflection and some things that are just not important. It's important that if we're going to participate in artful projects, plays, whatever they are, they have a message. And, that this is extremely important to you personally, and I think important to our audience, that this perception is out there, that you're doing this for a reason.
Absolutely, and I'll be donating my fee to Equality North Carolina.
So wonderful.
Those issues can be addressed as meaningfully as possible.
Yeah. Well, you aren't one to shy away from issues.
No.
Yeah, I see your Twitter feed.
Yeah, I know. I get myself in trouble sometimes about that. But what I try to do is, my father, who was, we were very involved in civil rights in North Carolina. 18 bullets through our house during a Christmas party. I won't go into all that, but it all came full circle, and it's coming full circle actually in this play, performing this play. That totally, I lost my train of thought. Where was I with that?
Well, just how it's all coming full circle, performing 12 Angry Men in North Carolina, and the experience you had with your father as a civil rights fighter.
Oh, yeah. He said, when you're having these kinds of discussions, and when you're having particularly emotionally charged discussions, challenge the position or the idea. Don't challenge the worth of the position or the idea. Don't challenge the worth of the person expressing it. And so whenever things start to get heated on Facebook or Twitter, so I try to step back and say, don't attack the person. Attack the idea, maybe, challenge the idea that's being expressed, but not the worth of the person expressing it. Because once you do that, one of the great things that Pema Chodron says is, how ask yourself, how can I voice something so that there is actually the possibility of change taking place? If I come at you like this,
Right.
you know, you shut down and that's it.
I see that in what you're posting. You're facilitating discussion
Yeah, I hope
without
so.
without name calling. And there are people who, in response, start to call names, and you manage to diffuse it most of the time. And I'm guessing if somebody gets too nasty, you probably
Click delete.
exactly.
You know, it's like somebody said the other day, they said, oh, I can't believe the things that person on Twitter was saying. I said, well, that's why the Twitter gods made mute and when absolutely necessary block, you know.
But I mean, it is an important election cycle.
Yes.
And one thing that I've been stressing throughout this whole year on the program is the importance of voting.
Absolutely.
If you were to
God,
say
yes.
directly to the audience why it's important to vote in a nonpartisan way, what would you say directly to the camera?
Well, you have to take part in your democracy. There's no complaining after the fact if you don't show up at the polls and let your voice be heard. I mean, you know, it's just so important to vote. It's so important to get involved. You know, people shy away. They say you should never discuss religion or politics, and I'm like, well, doesn't everything touch on religion or politics in one way or another? Isn't that sort of the lifeblood of the life that we lead day to day? So definitely get out and vote, and good luck. Good luck in this highly emotionally charged environment.
But in the meantime, we're grateful that John is appearing on season 3 of The Flash on the CW, which premieres in October 4th.
Yes,
At
October
8
4th.
p.m. And you can get season 2, the Blu-ray.
Yes, and
Which
digital
is-
download.
Digital down, which is loaded with deleted scenes that are going to break your heart. Because there's some Henry things that didn't get into the episode.
Which broke my heart.
They're just, you know, moments that, you know, audiences are just going to love. And, you know, we're so grateful that, you know, you took this time to spend with us, John.
Thank you, JC.
Sure.
Thanks, John.
Thank you so much.
great
And
to talk
there's
to you. Thank you.
always a seat open for you, and I hope that you take it again sometime soon.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, we have about 30 seconds before we have a little bit of something to
Sure.
share, everybody. What have you been up to in the last year or so?
Well,
Because you haven't popped in a while.
I just launched a new website. If everyone wants to go visit it, it's at www.fansite.com, and I do a lot of my pop culture blogging on there, and a lot of my celebrity interviews are on there. And I've just been keeping busy doing that. You know, it's just covering music and entertainment. It's especially in this cycle, I think it's important to keep up on those things.
Okay, and there'll be a link to that at the www.talkingabout.info website. Thank you for being part of this half hour. We've got another half hour coming up.
That's what I'm talking about, talking about, talking about.